Over the hump, over the hump, hump, hump. Hey, welcome to the Met Comedy Night Morning Show. That's right, Comedy Night Morning Show. Over the hump. Yes,
Morning
we're
show.
the bi-weekly morning show. By bi-weekly, we try to mean every other week, hopefully. Some weeks you get over the hump, and some weeks you don't. But this is episode 1, opening morning of the Over the Hump show. We have Janae Fouche on as our first guest, the current artistic director of the Maryland Ensemble Theater, where I also work. You know, I've known this person for quite a while, but I really don't know much about her. And that's what today is about. As artists, we do a lot of different things. Creatives go in a lot of different places in their lifetime or career, or what have you. So I'm here to find out what Janae has been up to. You'll get to find that out too. Please interact in the comments. We're streaming to Facebook and Twitch right now. If you are on Twitch, you're probably watching this in 1080p. Facebook restricts us to 720. Anyways, I want to let you know, case of emergency, fire exits are out the way that you came in, and the Maryland Ensemble Theater is a 501c3 tax deductible. Donations are what help keep the theater going. There's a button down there to donate on Twitch, or you can go to Maryland Ensemble Theater /donate. Also, tomorrow night, we have Strange Times Indeed at 9 p.m. with your host, Cliff McAllister. Any bizarre stories that you have trouble understanding, would like to share, you can call in on that show. Oh, yeah, this is a call in show, too. After about half an hour, we're going to open the lines to some of Janae's peers and hear some backstage stories, what it's like working with her, or perhaps how fun it is to go to opening night, or to the bar after opening night, rather, and what that what that might be like. So what are the positive, uplifting, and exciting stories of the before times is what we're after. But you know what, enough from me. Let's get our guest onto the show. Millie is here. Kat is here on Facebook. Hi, Steven. Hi, Kat. Oh, great. All right. Janae, hello, welcome.
Hey!
Oh my gosh, you're here. I'm here. Well, this is opening day, opening morning.
I can't see you on my screen.
Oh yeah, you're right. Cause
Am I
I
supposed to be
I
able to see
switched that
you?
up. Now, do you see
There
me?
we go.
Fixed it.
Hi,
I love it.
Miley. Hi, Kat.
And
Laura's
there's
here too.
yay, hooray! So what I more or less tasked you with the idea of this show is, could you summarize in around 15 to 20 minutes all the things you've ever done artistically, right?
Oh,
Like, I'm so fascinated by multimedia stuff. Like, if you ever did like a little bit of this here, a little bit of that there, but mostly, if there are people going to be calling in, hopefully at 10:30, you know we want to include all the different little sections of places you've done some art before, in case someone's listening from there and has a story to share about that little place. So, yeah. What what
great.
what got you started? What got you started?
I was going to be a lawyer, and that's what I was going to go to school for. And it
Ah,
didn't really even occur to me because nobody in my family went to college. So it didn't occur to me that theater was an option to even apply for. So I
ah.
don't know. I was in my senior year. I was all set. I was going to go to law school. And my theater teacher messed it all up and said,
Oh no.
"Yeah, why not? Are you going to major in theater?" And that was kind of it. So I went to West Virginia University. I got a full ride scholarship there. So I had no student loans at first till I went to grad school. Um, but yeah, so I changed my major 3 times. So that means that actually I changed my major 6 times because I would get into theater and then I would be looking at it. I don't know that I really wanted to be an actor from the beginning because I knew that I sort of wanted the stability of a paycheck, and I knew that being an actor meant that I would
Mm,
be in different locations every five
I
weeks or
understand
whatever
that.
if I was going to go on that path. So I don't know that I ever really bought into that I wanted to be a performer, although I was training to be a performer. And I also didn't really, I didn't come from an arts family, so I didn't know what that entailed, what the career could offer. So it took me a really long time to figure out what I was doing. Um, and and I find that I'm a teacher now, but in college, but colleges don't tell you what that career path will be really, or they didn't then. Maybe they do now, and that would be great. But
Right. Yeah, and I feel like there's more access to information generally now. But oh, look, Maryland Ensemble Theater, we can say yes, stable
stable
paycheck. So
paycheck.
like I understand
Yes.
that too. When I was studying to be an actor, I mean I got hired in the scene shop because after I took stagecraft, they were like, "We need you. You can get paid. Do this here."
Yeah.
And then instantly in my head, it was like a click, like, "Oh, here's the paycheck. Build the things, build the sets." Even though the dream is I want to be the center of attention. I guess I kind of knew
Right.
that already, but
Yeah. I mean, it just didn't. The thing that really scared me was the thought of finding a job and then knowing that I needed to be looking for the next job right away.
always.
So I didn't I didn't ever really buy into that, and I knew that that's not what I wanted to do. And I didn't feel like I was that great an actor that I could make that happen for myself anyway. I didn't have a lot of confidence. So
Oh, come
anyway, I
on.
struggled for a really
I've
long time to
seen
figure
you
out.
on stage. That's why you're the first guest. We think you're a good actor here.
Oh,
You know what's
thanks.
funny? This is some of Steven's statistics, because I've remembered this. It's it's not accurate, but I've read this somewhere. The second or third most scary thing for a person to do in their life is to change jobs. Like in general, there's some survey, right? And then to put that into perspective for people who aren't an actor, like you have to do that every 1 or 2 months, especially like in theater, if that's what whatever that is.
Right.
Like you're looking for the next job and the job after the next job while you're currently working on something. And so the most fearful thing that one of the most fearful things you could do is a constant.
Yeah. Yeah. It's terrifying. I mean, and so I knew I wasn't up for that. But
Hey,
anyway,
Joe
when I was
Williams. Hey, Rich Del Grande. Thanks for saying hey. I'm glad you like the show, Rich. Go ahead.
yeah, so I went to after my freshman year, I got an apprenticeship at Williamstown Theater Festival, which was probably one of the best moves that I made, because I made a lot of contacts there and I got a lot of good information. I mean, I was training, I feel like, I was at West Virginia University, which wasn't a big name and it's still not really a big name in theater training, but I got really good training there.
Hmm.
Um, I had my professor there, one of them, Joe Olivieri, is now at UCLA, and he just wrote a book that I'm using in my college classes. He's, I got great training. They were all from American Conservatory Theater in San Francisco. So all of my instructors there came from that school. So I really got great information there. But at Williamstown, I learned what the business was all about. And so I spent 3 years working there. I was an apprentice the first year, and then I went back and was the second year I was an intern, and I was a company manager assistant. So I was an intern in the company management office.
It's funny,
So
you're already doing a little bit of everything as someone in theater.
yeah, yeah. So I learned that job. That's where I learned really about I didn't even know that the job of company manager existed at that point. I worked with a really great guy named Mark Borzak, who is he's now the company manager of Moulin Rouge on Broadway. So we're all out of work now. We're
Right.
all
Yeah,
in
yeah,
the
yeah, yeah.
same boat, but
This show's about capturing the fun stories of the before times.
yeah, yeah.
of when we were not out of work.
Right, right. So yeah, so I learned a lot there. Then the third year, actually after my second year, I was living in New York. I quit school. I was like, I'm gonna just work. But I didn't really know what that meant. So I moved to New York for about 2 years. And while I was there, I worked in the Williamstown Theater Festival New York City office. So I was working there part-time through the week and answering phone calls and getting ready for, they have a summer theater festival in Williamstown, Massachusetts. So all year you're planning for that festival. So I
Oh
was
yeah,
taking,
it's like one of those things where the day after it comes down, you're like, well, what are we doing next year?
yeah, yeah.
This was great, but immediately we're gonna make it better. Like the
Yeah,
next
and I
day.
like being on that end of things though, because not only, I mean, all of these great people are calling the office. Like, I pick up the phone and Blythe Danner's on the other end talking about like what she's going to do that summer. And that they had asked me to call her and ask her if she was coming back that one summer. So, I'm calling Blythe Danner. Weird. So and she calls me back and she's like, and I'm 19, 20 years old. I don't know. I was, yeah, very young. And Gwyneth Paltrow wasn't even, I think she had just filmed Hook, maybe. I don't know, but she wasn't a name that we knew. And at that point, she was like, well, if you have a place for Gwynny during the summer, I'll come. But, she's going away to college or whatever was. So we found a place for Gwynny and she came that summer. And it was a really cool experience being on that end of things, kind of producing and getting things. I wasn't a producer at any point there, but
But
I
you
knew
kind of played
that
a role
job
in
entailed.
helping in the producing aspect.
Right, right. So I learned everything from how to run a box office to the next summer I went, after I worked in the office, then I got hired as the cabaret manager. So after the main stage and the second stage shows would shut down, everybody would go to the bar. And at the bar, we would have all of the stars of the shows would come and do a cabaret. So whatever number they came up with, Jane Krasinski did.
Now that's the cool stuff right there. Like
Yeah, it was
just
like,
hanging out, like
yeah,
all these people doing their like side act at the bar, and if anyone's not in the crowd and they're not expecting anything, they're like, "What's happening here?"
right. So so that was a really, really cool job. That was the last time I worked with um, people of renown. but it was a great time. That wasn't the last time, actually. The next summer, I went to Contemporary American Theater Festival, and I was an assistant director there for the summer. Um, I directed a staged reading series and was the assistant on all of the main stage shows. That was great experience. Again, most of my real learning came post college, I would say, about how to be a producer. So it was at that festival, CATF, that's in Shepherdstown, West Virginia, that I met my husband, Tad, who's now
Tad.
Tad Janes, the
Tad
artistic director,
Janes. I know that guy.
Maryland Ensemble Theater. So we met there. He was an actor, and he had actually gone to West Virginia too. So a lot of people thought think we met in college, but we did not. So he graduated the year I, the year before I went.
Right. So if you went a semester earlier, or if he stayed a semester later, you would have seen each other on campus.
Exactly. But as it happened, I knew who he was because his headshot was on my advisor's wall. So, and Ed Herendeen, who is the artistic director of Contemporary American Theater Festival, was also my professor at West Virginia. So that's where that connection happened.
Gotcha.
So it's all about connections.
Yeah.
Really.
Yeah.
Not about it, of course your talent has to get you the next job and get you noticed, but really I learned very early that it's about who your contacts are.
Yeah, who you know. I mean, it's interesting. It's like if you know, you're a creative, and so
Yeah.
it's like, hey, you want to create this together? It's like that a lot. Like, hey, you want to work on this little project together? Yeah, sure. Where?
And Ed Herendeen, actually, he started that theater festival after he worked at Williamstown. So he was at Williamstown all of the years that I was at Williamstown, except for the last year, because that was his inaugural year at CATF. He got a sweet deal from Shepherd University, and they're housing that theater festival. It's a fabulous theater festival. They do all new works. If you haven't been there, you need to go when they reopen.
Yeah. In the new times, in the future,
Yeah.
future times.
Who knows what
Yeah.
theater is gonna be.
Coffee break. Hold on.
Oh,
You told me to do that with the cup right before we
yeah.
started. So this. Oh wait, DC liked. Oh no, I thought that was a thumbs up. I thought DC liked my sipping out of my coffee, but it's the let's hope for the new future times. It's a fingers crossed, I think is what that is.
Oh, yeah. Now I see it.
All right. So what's next?
Yeah. So then I was at CATF with a bunch of friends, new friends, old friends. Two of the people there were Tad Janes and Daniel Kewen, who I actually went to high school with. It was one of those situations too. He was a senior and I think I was a freshman. So we were there 1 year together, but I don't exactly remember him from high school, but that when we went there together, but he came back and directed a show for us in high school. That's another story. But we were sitting around a dorm room one night and talking about how the actor life wasn't maybe something that we all wanted to pursue in single careers. So the idea of an ensemble theater company was kind of born in a dorm room at Contemporary American Theater Festival. And
Yeah, let's
Tad,
create a place where we could
yeah,
create and not have to always be in search of a place that we can be creative. Like
right.
let's do it. Let's do it here and not
Well,
search for it.
yeah, let's not depend on anybody to give us a job. Let's make our own job.
Yeah, yeah.
So that
Which
was
is a
the
big
idea
job.
behind it.
But
So, you know, I really wanted to go to Chicago. Tad was living in Chicago at the time, and most of the people there were in Chicago. So I was like, I'm going to go to Chicago. But it ended up that it was, there was a lot of improv in Chicago, which is where they wanted to start because Tad and some of them had come from an improv background. And in Chicago, Tad was creating shows where they were character driven. So each person would come up with a character and then they would improvise these shows. So that's kind of the cheapest way to start a theater company. So we had planned to do improv
yeah.
in bars because we didn't have to have a space.
Well, and if you do that too, if you're doing that in bars, which I'm seeing the Cheers and the Chicago Represent coming on,
Yeah.
if you do that in bars, then you're able to accept money. Like musicians would accept money for being the entertainment for that night. You're not selling seats and stuff, so I could see that working out really well.
Well, we had an arrangement with the bars. Some of the bars paid us to come.
Right, right.
That was later, though. Our first gig
You still
was
have to
at
prove
Old
yourself.
Town Tavern in Frederick.
I've
You know,
been there.
yeah, in the back room. So
Yeah,
they let us have the whole back room. So we could have a table set up where we took money for tickets.
Yeah, yeah. That's a pretty large room. It's like 20 by 30 square feet. I mean, I've seen music people have a decent sized stage in there and everything. And then,
Yeah.
of course, what's helpful for improv is if you get people drinking, then like you're funnier, right?
Yeah, I think they really liked having us back there. I mean, we brought in
Yeah.
great crowds. We were there once a month.
You're
when we
the
first
house you're the
started.
house show.
Yeah, and we did we were half improv. Well, so we would do 3 acts, but each act was about 25 minutes. So we would do like 20 minutes of improv, take a break, we'd come back and do sketch comedy, and then take another break and then finish out with just a few more games.
Yeah, yeah. That sounds great.
So, yeah, it was short form
Well, and I bet
mostly.
you know what else is funny about this? I bet the bar really liked the fact that you took 2 breaks, right? Because then everyone
Oh
goes
yeah.
and gets a drink. I mean,
Yeah.
like that's wonderful.
I think they would have continued having us there indefinitely if we wanted to do it. One of the things that was really, Miley brought it up, the tin can lights. When we first started there, we didn't have any lighting equipment and the stage was not lit. So, if you're a band, you bring in your own everything, your lighting, your sound,
Yep.
everything. So we didn't have any lighting. We didn't have any sound. Well, we had sound because we had plays guitar, and so we had like amps and things that we could set up there. But we had no lights, so
Like,
we took
sure you can
coffee
perform,
cans.
but you do everything.
Yeah, yeah, we would have been shut down by the fire department because we took coffee cans and put floodlights in them, and then we had
Because they're the coffee cans that are like really shining on the inside, right? And it's like reflecting a
yeah,
bunch of extra light. Yeah, 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 yeah.
yeah. So we
Okay.
made lights out of coffee cans.
Did you like tape the light into that, or was it kind of like just
I think they were duct taped in there. I don't know.
yep,
It was
tape, yep.
very jerry rigged. It was very low maintenance. And then the dimmer switches you have in the old time, the round ones on the that you dial up for the dining room lights.
Yeah, 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 yeah.
We had those on a board that controlled the lights up and down.
But it was mostly like a power strip, right? Like
Yeah,
that had these dimmers
but
into
homemade.
plugged in. Right, right, right. And then you had these dimmers
Yeah.
that were just like electrical outlets for the house
Uh-huh.
and like multiple dimmers like on a power strip running separate cords to each light that you more or less would lights be switching like throughout the performance too, or no, it's just like you kind of faded them all up to like
It was like
70% ish.
we didn't have special. I mean, there was
It was
no
like,
nothing fancy up and down. That was it.
yeah, right, 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 yeah.
But, it was able to give us a blackout,
But you
which
did it.
yeah, yeah.
Blackouts, I mean, if you don't have a blackout for an improv show,
Right.
you're gonna miss jokes. It's
Well, and
ridiculous.
we had a lot of blackout sketches in our sketch comedy too.
I mean, that makes sense too. Like the last word and then the blackout is the
Yeah,
punch to
it's
that. If
gotta
you
be
don't
timing. It's all
have
about timing.
that, like I I mean, I know why you went about it the way you did because I mean, it takes away half of the show. It would seem like, you know what I mean, if you don't have that button. Um, and so yeah, doing that all yourself. Oh, are you frozen? Okay, no, you're not. I thought you were frozen for a second. Doing that all yourself, I
It was
mean,
just very still.
necessary. By the way, we do have a call in right now. We got 4 more minutes until we'll start the call ins. Daniel is in the waiting room of our Zoom call.
Oh, awesome.
Um, and if you're interested in sharing a story about Janae, say so in the comments, and she'll message you the Zoom link so that way you could be in the waiting room. So yeah, you have now 3 minutes to tell me about the rest of your life before we hear from
Oh,
other people.
so after that, we started the comedy show, and then the second thing that we really did was we thought we'd take uh, shows, classic shows, to high schools. So we built Antigone, and we took Antigone out in our first season, and then that was pretty successful. And then after that, we had the whole spring lined up of for our next show, which was Romeo and Juliet.
Yeah, that's
Um,
great.
yeah, but it was like 93, 94, 95, 96, maybe around there. I don't remember what the year was, but it was also the year that we had ice storm after ice storm after ice storm. So the schools they were closed for like a week at a time. So
Right.
every single one of them canceled.
Because if they're already taking days off, they're not
Yeah,
going to spend the day to have more of an extra learning experience,
no way.
and they're just like we need to catch up on what we're already behind, I guess. We got a comment from Carly. It says Janae is so cute, heart faces.
Really?
Oh, only
So
1 week at a time, simpler times. Oh,
yeah,
when they canceled only 1 week at a time instead of
yeah,
canceling months. Ah,
that's for
wow.
sure. So that fell apart, and at that point, all of the actors who were here, not all of them, Tad and I stuck it out, but most of the actors left at that point, and they're now in their other careers. Um, some of them, I say other careers, some of them still in the same career, just in a different place. But so after that, we always wanted to start a theater company. So at about 97, well, we started teaching classes in the Parks and Rec, started teaching acting classes. That sort of started to build an audience. That's where we met Mai Lee, because Sarah, her daughter, was in our first class. She took acting from us and improv. And then we started the theater company. Our first space was now was a McCrory's building, which is next door to our theater. Yeah, thanks, Rich. It was the year Carly was born.
Yeah.
Yeah, so
Rich says it was
we're really old
94. Which, by the way, it is 10:30, so I'm inclined to get this first call in going.
Okay.
But then Leah says she couldn't call in. There's a story about when a sound system went out. Um, maybe we'll get into telling that here in a
Okay.
little bit. So we're gonna take a short break, let someone in on the call, and we're gonna be right back. You don't touch that dial. Over the hump, oh, over the hump. And we are back. Okay, we have one of Janae's peers. You recognize this person, Janae? Well, go ahead and introduce yourself.
This is Henry Myman, everybody.
Yes, I go by Henry or Hank, depending on how the day's going.
Yeah, I like to call you Hank.
I like Hank. I'll take it. I'll lick my mask sticks.
We don't need a mask right now, but
Well,
I don't know who you have around you though.
On my screen, you're only 2 inches away, so maybe a mask is good.
Okay. Yeah, exactly right. But I am on the West Coast, so it is pretty far away.
Yeah. So, so Hank and I work together at Williamstown, and Hank is a stage manager, and I should have been a stage manager. Really,
you should have been.
You want a consistent
work?
You should have been. It's really funny you said that about Gwyneth Paltrow. That was when I got my equity card. Gwen was put into Huck Finn at the outside stage at Williamstown. And by the way, she was not going to college yet. She was 17, going on 35, and a handful. But it was a good show. Yeah,
it was a good show. She also filled in Defying Gravity that summer. You remember that?
Yeah, she left and went back to took a lot of classes.
Yeah, I actually though, I mean, Jeannie Francis was playing the role that she took over for because she had to fly opening weekend. This is what happens at Williamstown. Opening weekend, she had to fly to LA for an audition.
Yeah.
So they had to put in Gwyneth at that point. And you know, for being put in, I thought she actually did a pretty good job. I saw that. I had to see the performance. Yeah.
Yeah, it was pretty good. Williamstown was Williamstown, started everything for me. I grew up in Kentucky and in Louisville, Kentucky, and the connections I made at Williamstown lasted a lifetime.
Yeah. obviously.
Well, not that much. I'm out in LA hanging out with Michael Ritchie, who runs Center Theater Group, but not.
Yeah, Michael Ritchie was a stage manager when Hank and I started there, but then he became the artistic director.
He took over Williamstown for a bunch of years and then moved on out here and took over as artistic director for probably about 15 years for Center Theater Group out here.
Yeah.
Which is scary what's going to happen.
So are you still with Toyota?
I am with all the auto industry. I have sold out. I'm with a company that works with the auto industry. We produce live events. And, I'm just one step up from the entertainment industry as far as being shut down. We're holding on to some things. We're doing some virtual trainings and things like that. But like my business, the company I work for 13 years is down to 25% of our staff is still active. We've let 75% of the staff go. So yeah, so it's all over.
Yes, yeah. That
I thought I was gonna skip it, dropping out of theater and going into the private sector, but
yeah, well, it's funny because in 2008, when the housing market went crazy, and then we had that big crash and lots of people lost their jobs.
Yeah.
Theater kind of prospered during that time because people needed an out. And
now it seems like people really, really, really need theater for that sense of connection, but we're like one of the most dangerous.
But it'll be interesting to see how it comes back and how you guys come back. I actually have talked about, Janae, about your guys' theater in Maryland and trying to figure out, how a company that size lives on and what happens when everything reopens. I mean, when, the Zoom calls are great, but, so, the Geffen out here is trying to do, I guess they have a magic show that's an hour long, that's 25 people allowed in a night, and it's supposedly great, but not going to take the place of live theater.
So to hit off of one of the things that you just said, that like is imagining how it reopens and stuff, and one of my thoughts about this show was to share like really fun and even like transformational stories about those times and let our audiences know what it is like to be experiencing being a part of an ensemble or being an artistic collaborator. So is there a specific story that when you think about Janae, you think, oh, there's this one time we went through this? And like, cause that's what I really want to highlight is hopefully you're not going to roast her.
No,
careful.
Yeah. But, I'm not gonna roast Janae. No.
No, I do. Well, we did, that summer we worked with, George Wendt. And
God, that was that summer too.
You remember that?
Yeah.
And
so
we would walk into the bar, and of course, if you're walking into a bar with George Wendt, then everybody stops and yells, Norm! So, so we did, that was that summer, and we almost got in a fight. Were you there during the night that
yes.
Steve?
But there was a fight director at our table.
Yeah. So
I wasn't worried about it.
Too. Yeah. I worked with at CATF as well.
Oh, wow.
Name?
I don't ask me names because I'm not going to remember them. I don't even remember the teacher that ended up at CTF. That you just talked about that was at Williamstown that I knew for years. But the one great George Wendt story. Do you remember, were you at the party on the quad? So we had this open area in Williamstown.
Where we got busted?
Yeah, George drove his car down a set of stairs because he wanted to deliver pizza and beer to the party. The only problem was the car couldn't get back up the stairs. So that was, Norm drives into the middle. I mean, to think about, coming from all over the different places, and all of a sudden this car comes down the stairs and everybody's freaking out. It's in this big open field, and out pops, Norm with pizzas and beer for everybody. It was pretty cool. There were a lot of great stories like that. Transformational.
Wow,
Janae and I
I'm just trying
probably
to
saw
think of
some
how far
amazing.
away the people were from the
Oh yeah,
stairs that were
I was all
getting
safe.
the pizza and the beer.
Everything we did in
Did
the
he drive it
90s
down
was
the
safe.
stairs for like 100 feet, or is it like 500 feet away?
It was, I don't know, a few hundred feet away. The stairs were at the other end of the quad. People could hear it coming. Everything was safe. We did everything.
Of
But,
course.
but the theater that we saw, because Janae and I worked, like, Janae was running a cabaret and so Janae and I kind of worked periphery to each other since I was stage managing. But the shows that we saw those years at Williamstown, I mean, it's phenomenal. You can't take that away. You can't, I remember seeing, I don't know how old the people are that are on listening to this podcast, but I saw a production of Inherit the Wind we did at Williamstown with James Whitmore. And I remember the final 5 minutes, Whitmore says nothing on stage. It's where he takes the Bible and Darwin and he puts them together and puts them in his bag. And telling that story, I still get chills. To watch that performance, I walked away going, I cannot leave this business. Eventually I did, but that's because I had a kid and I had to make money. But I mean, it's just, it cannot be replaced. And my time with Janae cannot be replaced either. It was a very fun summer.
Totally.
All the snaps from me. I think that's a good place to leave it because we have someone else calling in. I'm going to point out this comment here. How was the party? I got mildly run over by George Wendt. Yes.
Yeah.
Anyways,
yeah, but it's a story.
It's a great story. I really appreciate you sharing that here. Thank you very much.
Thanks for offering
to
me. And bye. Y'all have a good day.
We'll be right back,
bye.
Everybody. Over the hump. Oh, over the hump.
That's what I'm filling my time with.
Where were you working when
all
this?
right, we just got audio back, so I this was one thing that I was fearful of. Will I unmute? I just unmuted, so go ahead and go right back over what you just said. It was not just you, Laura. You could not hear anything. No one could hear anything. Thanks to Kevin Cole for texting me saying the audio is off.
Yeah, so Daniel, everyone. This
Yeah,
is
wow.
Daniel Kewen.
And we were catching up. You were working on a one-man Edgar Allan Poe show.
Wow, this keeps playing back over and over. This is very strange.
Do you have your Facebook on? Turn
I do.
Facebook
Do
off.
I need to get rid of that?
Yeah, I think
Likely
so.
so. Yeah.
Okay, that's
because you're
off.
gonna hear us, and then you're gonna hear us
Hey,
delayed.
yay, we're in sync again.
We are in sync.
Okay, I think that did it.
So tell us what you're doing now, or what you were doing before this hit.
Oh, well, I'm still doing theater. I'm acting, directing, designing. I do some regional theater. I do a lot of summer stock theater. I'm getting into film more. I just did a film last summer. I was just artistic director or art director on a film. Looks like I'm going to be doing art director on a horror film coming up in January that I hope that I will be in as well.
Excellent.
But until all that gets rolling, I'm I'm in South Carolina right now, and I'm an equity actor. So that means I have to travel for just about every job I do if it's not technical.
Right.
So I do a lot of
Right.
carpentry and design here and scenic painting, that kind of thing. But right now I'm mostly working on my one-man Edgar Allan Poe show,
Excellent.
I love it.
which is going to be, I'm hoping to make it a little, because I toured for years with Boston Chamber Repertory Theater, and we did, so I did like over 1,000 performances of The Telltale Heart around the country.
I remember.
And I always wanted to do it my way. I got, there's a point where I'm like, this is nice for the school kids and all that, but wouldn't it be cool to really amp this up a bit and make it something that adults would really get into? Kind of the excitement of going to see a slasher film kind of thing. So that's what I'm doing right now. I mean, it's not gonna be gory or anything like that, but I'm incorporating a lot of projections and, like I'm trying to work in an animatronic Raven for the Raven.
Awesome.
And I'm just having fun
Animatronics are the
playing with
bomb.
that and exploring that. Yeah.
Well, Stephen, Daniel,
so I'm hoping to get that going.
Sorry.
Well, first,
What's that?
I mean, I think it's great that you're a carpenter and a scenic painter and an actor trying to do a one-man show. I find myself like identifying a lot with those things. But yeah, what were we gonna say, Janae?
I was just going to say, Daniel and I were roommates for a time at West Virginia University.
Great, that was my question. How do we know each
Yeah.
other? What did we do in the before times that shared experience, and what are some of those stories of the shared experiences that the two of you have?
So, yes, so many shared experiences. We also worked together at
Lord.
CATF.
Oh, Lord.
Did you work at
No.
CATF that summer? Or did you just, no?
No. I was dating Amy at the time. And
Oh,
came out
right,
to
and
visit.
Amy worked there. Okay. So, yeah.
Yeah, I was dating her, but I think she was dating an actor there at the time. I don't know.
It happens.
You know how theater is. We were all kids. It was all good.
Yeah.
We're great friends still. So I'm joking, of course. She's a wonderful person.
Yes, she is.
But we knew each other from high school, though we weren't in the same class together.
Yeah.
I graduated a year or two before you, and then came back. I actually directed a play that Janae wrote for some class project.
Yeah.
It was interesting because it was about the funeral of her acting teacher. And I always wondered how he took that.
Yeah. We're writing about the
do you remember
teacher's
that?
death.
Am I wrong?
No, I mean, no, it
That's
was.
a great story.
Yeah.
It was fun. And actually, Janae is the one that ended up getting me to go to West Virginia University. She was going there already. and I was going to visit her. I don't know if I was going to see a show or whatever. And she got me to audition, and I ended up getting a scholarship and going back to school. And then we ended up being roommates for a while.
Yep.
Most of those stories I can't tell.
She got you to major in
Yeah.
art. She was just saying.
Oh, no.
shooting, or
I'd
that or
already
something.
been
That's
to
good.
the American Academy of Dramatic
great.
Arts.
Great.
So
was
I do want
definitely-
to
I
tell
was
one story
well into
though.
theater.
Oh, wait, Janae's got a story.
I do want to
Okay.
tell one story, and I have to.
Uh-oh.
It has to come from you because I wasn't there necessarily, but I sort of have this foggy
Mhm.
recollection of this, so maybe you can clear it up for me. So we used to have. We didn't.
I'll try.
If you're in theater, you have no time for fraternity or sorority or any of that. So we had
I would
our
agree.
own sorority, which is where we created the Comedy Pigs later, which is our comedy troupe. But it came
Woohoo.
from the pigs at West Virginia because we were the pigs. So that was our non-fraternal fraternity so consequently, somebody who was in theater always had what we termed the pig house. And we lived in the pig house the year that we lived together. So
That was where the parties were then.
Yeah.
That's
so
where like the cast party
Oh,
would
yeah.
be after opening night or after closing.
there were parties there every
And then
night.
there's a
Yeah,
theme. Oh yeah, okay.
Oh, constantly.
So at
Constantly.
Christmas time, we had a party, and I don't know if it was for that party or whatever. We painted the logo of the pig on the wall in spray paint.
Right.
You remember this?
Of the
Yep,
of the house.
that was me.
The
Yep, I
interior of
painted
the
it.
house. Great.
Yeah. The interior of the house
Adds so
The
much
whole
to the
wall.
party.
was just this big pig head.
Couldn't have done it without it.
So I come home one day, and Daniel says, and I'm with our other roommate, Jen. Jen and I walk in, and Daniel's sitting there, and he goes, I think I might have gotten us evicted. And we were like, why? And apparently the lights were out. I don't know if the electricity was out or what was going on, but Daniel was sitting doing his homework or something on the floor of the living room with a candles in front of him lit. And the landlord walked in, saw the pig on the wall, and Daniel sitting there surrounded by candles, and thought we were some kind of satanic cult or something.
Oh my gosh. I could
He didn't
see
quite know
it.
what to make of
I could imagine it right now.
it.
Candles and a pig. Was the color of the spray paint red?
It's black, I think.
Okay,
No,
well
it was-
then that's
it was black.
It's
Yeah, it was
still
black.
it's still a little eerie. Like, yeah, that might have gotten us evicted. Oh no.
Yeah, and I guess with the pointy ears and whatnot, it might have had like a pentagon feel to it. I don't know.
So the
but
power
I'll
is
be honest
out?
with you,
Why
I
was
don't
the
remember
power
that
out?
specifically. I
What's
have
that?
no idea. I have no idea. I don't remember sitting around with the candles, but it certainly sounds like something I probably would have done. I do remember the landlord coming in and looking at it and going and not knowing what to make of it. And I spent a good 5 minutes giving my best. Oh, we're good people, really, and don't worry, I'll paint the wall before we leave. And
We're just
we ended
theater
up not
people.
getting evicted, fortunately. Yeah.
That's the
Yeah, and
explanation.
then
We're
you say that
just
and people are like,
theater
oh,
people.
okay, say no more. Say no
Oh, okay.
We're not real people. We're actors.
Yeah, you're just being weird and extra because that's what you like to do, being weird and extra. Okay.
Right.
Exactly.
Oh. Well, thank you very much for that story. That might be a good place to leave it and see if we got time for at least one more caller.
Great. Thanks, Daniel.
Daniel,
All right.
so
And
so
hey,
good to meet you.
keep up the good work. I love following the Met on Facebook, and I'm hoping to get up there and check you guys out again real soon, and hopefully maybe my show can tour through your theater.
Great.
Oh yeah, that would be
Fantastic.
We'll
fun.
talk.
Well, yeah, if you're a one-person cast,
well-
it's a little easier to perform with the COVID rules.
Yeah, we can put you up.
Oh yeah, cool.
Yeah. Oh, I'm working on a design where I'm totally encased in plexiglass.
Yes. Oh my
Nice.
gosh.
And
We'll have to hear more
I'm working on a
about this.
COVID-proof production.
You hear that, everyone? A one-man cased in plexiglass is the next.
Which many people
The next
feel I
way
should have
you
been
can see
encased
a
in
live
long ago anyway.
performance.
But
All right, well, thank you very much, Daniel. Say goodbye to everybody. We're going to take a short break,
Great
and we'll
talking
be
to you guys.
right back. Over the hump. Oh, over the hump. All right, we're back. We're waiting for the next call in. Do we have any fun shared experiences that we'd like to share with Janae? Let us know in the comments, and we'll get you a Zoom link. Also, I mean, I was thinking about just posting the Zoom link into the comments.
There
'cause
was
that might be
a
easier.
question from Miley. Was Amy a pig too? Yes, Amy was a pig. Amantha Haygood.
Amy was a pig.
Yep. She was a funny pig.
The Comedy Pigs, by the way, are still involved with the Maryland Ensemble Theater, and they were the first comedy show that I streamed. We did it back to back with some short form comedy, getting suggestions from the audience, and it tended to work really well. And this was in May, I believe. No, June. It was in June. And then they took July off. They're back in rehearsals now. So we're anticipating a show of the Comedy Pigs on the Met Comedy Night page on Twitch. And then likely on Facebook as well, since we're multi-streaming the Comedy Pigs on Facebook. So it's been over 25 years, right, Janae?
Yeah, and while we're on Amy, I just would say that she came up with the name because we were sitting in my living room and we were trying to figure out a name for our comedy troupe, and Amy was a pig too. And almost everybody in that original group, the majority of us were pigs from West Virginia University in that non-fraternal fraternity that I talked about. So at one point we were like, should we incorporate that into the name? And Amy just came out with, what about the Comedy Pigs? So that's where we got the name.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
you were all about the pigs. I mean, it was spray paint on your wall, so
Yeah. Well,
so it already matched the theme of all of your parties, right?
yeah. Amy was there for that.
I went ahead and made it easier on everybody. I hear Laura's wanting to the story of the writing process of Finally Heard. Laura, you're invited to call in and also share that story. And then we're talking about boosting the comment from earlier about Good People sound system going out. So yeah, the link is right there. Oh, are you frozen, Janae?
Am I?
Oh no. Okay. I thought you might have
Yeah, I
been.
was just very still.
I get scared because I'm using my Wi-Fi to stream out and to be on the Zoom call. So like I'm
Sure.
like, oh no, is my Zoom freezing? So yeah, and if you call in, we'll go to a break, let you on the Zoom call, and you could
It'd be great
join
if
us.
DC could call in because he was in that Good People.
Yeah.
I don't know if DC, I don't know if you're listening still or not.
I'm hearing about this sound system that's going out a lot. And then this writing process of Finally Heard are two stories we're being asked for. So if you want to start sharing one of those.
Yeah, I'll start with the Finally Heard story,
Okay.
and then maybe if DC's out there, he'll call in. But anyway, Finally Heard was our first production, and I was working as a journalist. My parents owned a newspaper, so I was working part-time for them, and I was assigned, oh good, DC, call in. I was assigned a story to do a review of this book, and it was called Women of Gettysburg, and Eileen Conklin was the author, I believe. But anyway, I procrastinated like I do a lot of things that I don't want to really do. But I procrastinated that book, and finally she called and she was like, are you going to do, I sent you my book, are you going to do a review of it? And I was like, oh, I guess I got to do that. But the last thing I wanted to do was read a book about the Civil War. Anyway, I started the book. I was fascinated. I couldn't put it down. It was awesome. And so I thought, it was about women at Gettysburg. So I started doing my own research on women in the Civil War, and we put together a show called Finally Heard. And these were all women who had different roles during the war. There was a nurse who was also accused of being a spy. There was a spy for the Union, and one of her former slaves who she had freed, but also became a spy with her and actually was working as a servant in Jefferson Davis's household, and so was instrumental in the North winning the war. So, and her story, I hadn't heard that. I hadn't heard that there were any women involved in the Civil War except for maybe being medics, but that was about it. There was another woman who was a canteen woman, so she would travel along with the troops, and then she would get their orders of what they wanted, and then when they would get to Gettysburg, she would go into town and buy hams and cigarettes and all of that stuff and then bring it back to the troops, right? So there are actual accounts of her walking through the battlefields and there being holes through her skirts as she's walking, so she's just was amazing. And then there was a woman who actually fought in the Civil War. So we had, a lot of different stories that we were telling.
That's excellent. Those are stories of badassery.
Yeah. Yeah. And so we put that story together. We had all of the women, we gathered women together to write it. We assigned people different characters, and they did their own research. And then they we wrote our own monologues, and then we came together and we had, like, I had a monologue on a piece of paper, and we cut, actually with scissors, the monologues into strips of paper, like before the war, during the war. We had different topics and themes that we were going to cover in the piece. So we had different envelopes on our table. We cut all of these pieces together, and we were like, okay, this is about before the war. So we'd stick that in that envelope. And this is like post-war, after the war, what happened. We'd stick that in that envelope. And then we just took each envelope, took out the piece of little slips of paper, and put that in as the script of the play.
Excellent. I love
We didn't
that.
know what we were doing. I didn't, you know, and
Well,
I want to
and that's what creative people do, is they do something new, right?
Yeah.
Like, that sounds like you're just like, all right, let's mix this bag up like this.
I
Which
cannot emphasize
We have
this enough.
DC in the waiting room right now, by the way, just
Oh,
letting
awesome.
you know. Is there something else you were to say about this writing process before we go
Yeah,
to
I
the
was just
call
going
in?
to say that we had no idea what we were doing when we started a theater company. We had no idea. I mean, you know, we had all of this
Ambition?
ambition and training and all of that behind us, but you don't really know how to do it. You just kind of jump
Start,
and
commit.
think everything's going to be okay.
Yeah.
And that really is a huge life lesson that I have to say that still, Tad and I will look at each other occasionally when we've devised a new show and it's opening up and it's opening night and everybody's responding well to it. We still will look at each other and say, we got away with it again. Someday somebody's going to figure out that we don't know what we're doing, but they haven't yet.
All right. Well, after that, let's go ahead and we're gonna go to the break and let DC onto the call.
Okay,
Here we
excellent.
go. Over the hump, ooh, over the hump. Yeah.
Hi,
And
everybody.
we're back.
So
Uh-oh.
we have a caller. This is DC Cathro. Hi, DC.
Hello.
So DC, we had a
Oh my God.
request.
Can you all hear me?
Yeah.
Yeah. If you still
us?
have Facebook open, then you might be hearing us twice. This was just previously happening. But we can hear you. Now your video is off because you're closing Facebook. And now here we go.
Yes.
There it is. DC's
Okay.
on the call. Everyone's been wanting you to share a particular story, but more or less, I mean, how do you know Janae? How did you cross paths as an artist? What's the background here?
Oh golly. Okay, so I met Tad at FCC. He was in a show, and I was working on it or something. I don't remember exactly, but we met at FCC, and Tad was like, "Oh, we're starting this theater company. You should totally join us." And I was like, "Great!" So I did. So I was she was talking about Finally Heard, and I was the stage manager for that, which I think is probably the last time I stage managed, which is tells you what a great stage manager I was. But yeah, so we met back in the day. That was that was pre-med. So we were there at the McCrory's building, hammering the grommets into the black curtain on opening night.
30 minutes before we opened the house, we were still
Yep.
putting the curtain up.
If the audiences ever knew how much work went down to the wire for theater,
For reals.
I mean, I don't know that they would trust us.
Crazy.
Oh,
It's magic. That's what
it
they
is
always say.
magic.
I have a friend, he's like, it's magic.
Well,
It's
that's our
always magic.
job as theater artists. Is the audience doesn't know our times of nervousness or our times of like saving each other on stage. They only get the presentation.
Yeah. So I just want to point out too that DC is also an actor and a playwright. So it's really, it's really important if there, I don't know who's watching this, but if there are any young people watching this, it's really important to be eclectic in your life, I think. DC, I correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't know that you had any ambition or even thought that you were going to be a successful playwright when you were with Matt at the
No,
beginning.
not a bit. No, I mean, back at the Met, I was an actor, but I also worked backstage and I did dressing on all the quick change shows and helped paint the sets and like everything you do will help you in everything else you do in the theater. It gives you a better understanding of what's going on around you and what other people have to deal with and how to make their jobs easier and better, which makes the show better. And all of that definitely influenced the playwriting very much.
Excellent.
So yeah, I just started writing about what, 6 years ago, like 6 years ago.
Yeah, that's interesting that you say that because in the theater, there's so many different art forms that have to come together in one space. And so the more understanding you have of the other art forms in that space, the easier it is for you to communicate in your role. And it's all about that. So I'm glad that you pointed that out. So can we segue? I'm hungry for this story about this sound system. Can we segue into this story? This is what I need audiences to understand about working as a theater artist is these like times when everything goes wrong, and it sounds like we've got one of those times.
Yeah, I'm gonna let you tell it, DC.
Yeah, here we
You know
go.
what? Here's the thing. It's so crazy because I forgot all about it until that popped up in the feed, and I was like, "Oh, that's right."
Perfect.
And all the best stories. It's crazy. All the best stories come from like a technical difficulty.
Yep.
Like there was this time with Rocky Horror. We were doing Rocky Horror Show, and the lights, all the power went out.
Right.
And we gathered up flashlights and gave all the phantoms flashlights. And so we were literally like on stage. The audience was sitting in the dark and we're flashing flashlights on each other. And right before Over at the Frankenstein place, the lights come on and the crowd goes wild. It's always like those kind of things. But so we're doing Good People. And I guess it was the bingo game.
Yeah.
And there are all these voiceovers where they're calling out the bingo numbers and it affects all of their lives, like Leah and Janae, and those are their cues, and nothing's happening, and they're just like, "Come on, what's the next number?"
And Tad was the voice on the voiceover, so he was like, you'd hear Tad's voice, B18.
Right. So there's sound cues that cue the actors in the show, but also like as an actor with memorized lines, sometimes you don't know at all what to say unless you hear exactly what's supposed to be.
Right.
It's like right before. It's like people are losing their spots.
Well, and you try, because you're just reacting to things. If you're successful, you're completely in the moment. And you're not thinking about you're thinking about what just came before because you're bringing that all into it. But you're not thinking about, the scene 3 scenes ago, and you're not thinking what comes next because you want to be in that moment. So if you don't hear your cue, you got to do some thinking to figure it out. But we're sitting there and it's just not happening. And there was a long pause.
So I'm like, give me a script. And somebody grabs the script.
And you were backstage, right?
Yeah, because I wasn't in that scene. I was never at the bingo game. Dang it! But so I grabbed the script and I'm like trying to do my best Tad imitation. B18.
Yelling the sound cues from the side curtain, huh?
Yeah, and it was funny because I was like sitting there, and you try to be in the moment, but in that moment I'm thinking, oh my God, Tad was here and he thought he picked it up, because Tad wasn't there for every performance. So I didn't think he was supposed to be there that night, but in my head, I heard his voice. So you did a great job, because I got through the scene and I was like,
you believed your husband.
How did Tad know what was going on? Like, if Tad was going to be in there, I thought maybe he like ran backstage and I missed it. I just didn't know.
It also implies that like you might have thought Tad had memorized the cues that he recorded likely weeks earlier, right? Like he doesn't know where they are in the show. He was probably just told, hey, record this, say that. Hey, record this, say that. So like that.
Yeah, Leah said she thought that the cues just started working again.
Yeah, so Leo was in the cast, right? And so she also thought the cues started working. Great.
Yeah, it was.
Oh boy!
It was pretty funny.
Wow.
And there was also one performance in that when the last show, or the second to the last weekend of the show, I had all of these quick changes. And one of the changes came after a scene with DC, and it was a very, very emotional scene where I like showed up at his house, and I thought he was gonna help me out in life, and he just didn't, and it didn't work out. And there's lots of crying and gnashing of teeth going on and whatever. And I go backstage to get dressed, and it was such a fast change that when the lights went out and I was going backstage, I would take my shirt off immediately and like throw it and then grab the other shirt. Well, the lights went out. I started to go back. I took my shirt off and threw it, but then my other shirt was not where it was supposed to be. So I was like, oh no.
Tracking got messed up because everyone's frantic about the sound. Like something might not have gotten put into place or something.
Wasn't the same show.
Oh, okay. This is a different show. Okay.
This was a different performance. So then it's dark back there. So I couldn't find my shirt. And I'm like scrambling to go find my shirt. And it's like, there's a long time that's gone by at this point. And since I threw my shirt, it was inside out. So I had to make it right side out again, finally get my shirt on. I book it on stage, and there was a window that was hanging. It was just kind of this window that was in the middle of the thing, and I hit the corner of it right here.
Oh, that's right.
You remember that? And I hit it, and it like went boom, and the audience was like, and then, so I continued onto the stage, and I sat down, and I went like this because it hurt. It almost knocked me out, but I put my hand up to my head, and when I did, it was all wet. And I was like, oh my God, I'm bleeding. And there's blood on my face right here. So I was like this. And when the lights came up, I sat down and I had to sit next to Julie. This was the scene. The next scene was where the sound went out in that whatever. But the lights came up. We're at the bingo game, and Julie's sitting next to me. And before the lights came up, she's like, "Are you okay?" And I was like, "Yeah, I think so." But I thought my head was bleeding. So I thought,
of course, I think I'm okay to keep going, even though I'm bleeding.
So the lights come up. I'm like this. And when the lights came up, I thought, well, I'm going to look at Julie and I'll take my hand away. And if she's freaking out, then I'll put it back, right? So I like turned and I went like this to say my first line to her. And then she just responded to me and there was no like on her face. So I took my hand down and it was actually fine. It was tears on my cheek from the last scene.
Ah, you just thought it was blood. Okay, so you
I'm
weren't.
like blubbering idiot, but I had you forget about that when you have a major catastrophe happening. So so yeah, if I had done this, I would have recognized that it was also on this side too, but I didn't go there. But anyway, I spent the last weekend of the show covering up a huge black eye that I had, which is the second time I've done a show with a huge black eye. The first time I was in a car accident on the way to the theater for the only show in our history that we had an understudy for. And it was an understudy for my role. And I don't even remember why we had an understudy.
For experience.
But, yeah.
Maybe.
But anyway, my understudy went on for us that night.
Tell them about baby dance. The baby dance slap.
Oh my God.
The baby dance slap. Oh, okay. This sounds like, I love titles to stories. When there's a good enough story that it's been told enough times and there's a title to it, that sounds like a good story.
So we were doing the baby dance and my character went off stage. Sophie Eric was in the show and she and Tad were on stage in a scene together. They were playing husband and wife and I was someone who's coming in. I was gonna adopt their baby. So I came to meet them at the trailer park. And when I left, I leave the stage and then they have a scene and I come back in halfway through their scene. I come back into the trailer. But when I come in, I'm supposed to see just at the point where he slaps her across the face. And Tad at that time had these big glasses. He doesn't wear glasses anymore because he had LASIK surgery. But at the time he wore these big glasses and he didn't see very well. But the director wouldn't let him wear his glasses because she liked the way, and this is a quote from her, she liked the way his eyes looked crazy when he didn't have his glasses on. So he wasn't wearing his glasses. So that night when I walked in, he had misjudged the slap and hit her so hard in the face that it kind of knocked her off balance. And I mean, it was a bad slap. And anyway, I had the line, how dare, I had to come in, see that. And I was like, how dare you hit a pregnant woman? That was my line. Right. But, and then so we got through the scene. I go downstairs and TC is down there doubled over laughing. And I was like, what? And he looks at me and what did I say?
No hit pregnant woman.
You're so, oh my gosh. Were you on stage at the time, DC, or you're just backstage?
No, I was
were
in
you
the
stage
booth.
managing? Okay.
I was in the booth.
You were running the board?
Yeah.
Yeah, but I was so startled that I guess I was like, no, hit pregnant woman.
Your line just completely morphed.
Oh, so Sophie did the rest of the run covering up a black eye.
Yeah.
Not really. It was loud. We were up in the booth and I was like,
oh yeah, and Tad felt terrible.
Yeah.
Like Tad had to do the rest of the scene like can you imagine hurting someone and then not even being able to apologize?
Actor wants to say I'm sorry, but character is like, you deserved that.
Yeah.
I was doing the full Monty once and this guy was supposed to like flip me over and he dropped me.
Oh
And
no.
I was fine. Everything was fine. But I was upside down and I was heading down. And so I had to like turn. So I landed on my shoulder instead of my head.
That's good.
And so we got off stage. This was the full Monty. And this was the final scene, the final dance, blah, blah, blah. And so we go off stage to get our robes to come out for curtain call because we just did the full Monty. And naked dude like grabs me by the shoulders off stage and it's like, oh my gosh, are you okay? Are you okay? Are you okay? I'm like, I'm fine. Let's get dressed. And we went out for curtain call. But yeah, it's scary. It's scary when things like that happen.
Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, there's not that these happen all the time every show, but things like this happen a lot. And like every show, there is a night that this one crazy thing happened, and that usually, hopefully all the time, but usually the audience doesn't know anything about it. Well, in the case of the smack, I'm sure there are people who realized that was a real slap or were like, what? Some people were like, oh no, that wasn't supposed to happen. And other people were like, they did a really good job.
Yeah.
I'm sure there's people in the
Oh
audience
yeah,
like,
I'm sure
"That
that's
was
how it looked to the
convincing."
audience, except when I said no hit pregnant woman.
No hit pregnant woman.
But I mean, but the great thing about theater is that these things do go wrong. Everybody else is around there to pick you up, make sure you're okay, and make sure the show goes on.
Of course, yes.
Especially with an ensemble, because there's such a tight knit community. We're always there and ready to make sure everybody's okay. So
I'm glad you said that because I certainly feel that way. Like the theater circles and the other artistic circles that I'm in, it feels like family. And I'm glad that you say that, and that's more or less what I want to share with our audiences now while we're not on stage is that camaraderie and why you need to support us now when you can't come see us, and then more importantly support us when we do have shows again. So anyways, I think that might be a good place to wrap it up there. DC,
Right.
Thank you for coming on and sharing these stories.
of course, I miss you.
I miss you too.
I'm kissing too. All right, we'll see everyone after the break. Over the hump. Ooh, over the hump. Hump, hump. And we are back. So we've had 3 call-ins, a lot of experiences shared. Thank you so much for being on, Janae. Is there anything else you wanna say?
Just good luck with your show. I think it's great. I had a lot of fun this morning. I didn't know how it was going to go, if I would have enough to talk about, but you make it easy.
Well,
so,
thank you so much. I'm glad you were our first guest, and really, thank you to our call-ins. It's funny, you think there's, what am I going to talk about? But then when you get started talking, and there's so much that that you could talk about as far as what happens backstage at a theater. So I'm sure I'm going to feel like I always cut the conversation short whenever the show has to end. But until next time, right?
Right.
Now, Janae, if you know anyone else on the show, you're welcome to call in the future. So this doesn't have to be your last time on. So anyways, I'm just going to tell everyone to once again stay tuned to Met Comedy Night on Twitch. Tomorrow night at 9 o'clock, we have Strange Times Indeed. Please support us at marylandensembletheater.org/donate. And yeah, thank you all. We'll be back hopefully in 2 weeks. You'll get over the hump. So you're going to have to get over the hump on your own next week. All right. Well,
Thanks, Stephen.
thank you, Janae. Bye, everybody.
Bye.
Over the hump. Ooh, over the hump.